Hi, I'm Britt.
And my name is Alissa.
And this is SkeleTales.
And this is the podcast where we strive to answer the age-old question of, is my dead grandma watching me?
Alissa, we all know that we're not supposed to do bad things because grandma might be watching us. Mm-hmm. But we also know that it's inevitable that we're just going to do the bad things. And so because of that, she just curses us in small ways. So I've come up with a grandma curse list for you today.
Okay.
And you can add on if you have something pop in. So when you're eating or drinking something and it spills on your shirt, dead grandma. And I got that one from sister-in-law Brie. I think we even talked about that on the episode. When you're using a public restroom, and you discover that there's no toilet paper and no one around to ask. When you stub your toe or bang your knee or step on a Lego, dead grandma.
Ooh.
When you push up your sleeves to wash your hands and then halfway through washing, the sleeve falls into the water.
Ooh.
When you're laying down and you're looking at your phone and then it drops on your face, dead grandma. When you cough to cover up a fart and then the fart is louder than the cough, dead grandma. Do you have any? I've got a couple more if you don't.
You keep going. I'll brainstorm.
When you're running out the door and it hooks on your sleeve of your shirt and the doorknob, you get caught up, or the pocket, like it hooks on your pocket and you get caught by the door. That's totally grandma just grabbing ya.
When you go to itch your nose and you accidentally poke yourself in the eye. Grandma.
When after you shower, there is a hair stuck in your butt crack. Does that ever happen to you?
Grandma, that's real mean. Have you seen my hair? It's all like in my butt.
In all the places.
Just,
Armpits,
it's not one hair. It's a
cracks.
whole like Furby. I don't even know. It's like a whole entire hairball. When you're walking and your sock just slouches down underneath and gets all bunched up underneath the middle
shoe.
of your foot.
Oh, it's so bad. That's so bad. When you've been working on a project on your computer for a long time and then your computer shuts down or the power goes off and all of that, lost. Grandma.
Oh man, when you're recording a podcast and you think you're recording it through your microphone, but then you're actually just recording it through your computer and the sound quality is shit. Grandma. Probably because we talked a lot of shit about grandma that episode, so beware. Let's tread carefully right now.
Curses. Okay, so I want to hear everyone else's curses, and this is a perfect time to make use of our phone number, voicemail. Call us and tell us your grandma curses. We want to hear as many as you can give us. The number is 302-689-DEAD, 302-689-3323. And give us your grandma curses, please.
I feel like they're little punishments. It's just like...
just like little ones. Yeah. Not enough to like affect your whole life, but to just be like, ugh.
But you know what I've realized, Britt? All this might not be grandma.
Oh, really?
I've heard that fairies can cause this sort of mischief to the point that people blame these things, not on their dead grandma, but on fairies and elves and gnomes and these sorts of little creatures that just are in it to terrorize and cause mischief. Have you heard this?
It's a whole wild world.
A world apart.
I have heard about this. In fact, I've heard so much about it that I think we should do a whole episode on it.
Oh my gosh, that's so weird because all my stories are about fairies and gnomes and stuff this week.
What? A strange coincidence.
But hey, Britt, did we just talk about grandma cursing us and grandma punishing us through minor inconveniences and annoyances on this podcast?
Only every episode, but we mostly tell strange tales of the strange, unusual, and paranormal, or in this case, kind of supernatural, right?
Yeah, mythical.
Mythical? Yeah.
Supernatural. I mean, some would say it's mythical, some say it's reality. And in honor of this, my hair, it looks like some fairies were messing with my hair last night. There's something called fairy knots.
They were dancing wildly in your mane. That is like, impressive knot happening in the back of your hair.
Like, they're literally called fairy knots, I think, in like Celtic lore. And like supposedly they come and like
I had not heard that.
Your hair about. Yeah. So in honor of this, they're just like, we hear you're going to be talking shit about us today, Alissa. So Brett, what are we talking about today on the podcast?
Today, we are talking about fairies, the fae. The Irish term is, I wrote it down. Easshi, pronounced Aisi, I think it is. Yes, we are talking about the land of fairies today. I mentioned this topic and realized immediately that I don't know jack shit about fairies. I was thinking Tinkerbell, flittering around in the forest. Oh, hell no, was I so wrong about the fairyland.
Apparently they're in a lot of cultures have this like legends and lore of small little creatures.
Yeah, it's not just Ireland.
No.
Where I thought was the only place. It's, mostly like European from
but not even. I've read ones about South America and Mexico and stuff, and then duende I think isn't one way, and then I came across a few from the Philippines, and they're called lambana, and then even the Cherokee people and Native Americans had them, the rock people, laurel people, dogwood people.
Oh, I am so excited to hear what you have. Do you want to talk about it first, or should I?
You get into it because you got so excited about this. I want to hear your stories first.
This is a first-person story by Evil Wizard. That's their official name. This story happened in 2007 and gets told every time my family gets together. My Nana owns a farm, and she's always had a herd of cows and a guard donkey. In one of her cattle fields, there used to be a large circle of mushrooms that my Nana said was a fairy circle. Now, my Nana is Irish, and Irish people don't mess with fairies, and she refused to even mow over the circle. When she married my step-granddad, he didn't believe in fairies or the paranormal, and he wanted to remove the circle from the field. But my Nana told him not to. He thought that she was being silly, and they would argue about it all the time. Long story short, he went behind her back and had the fairy circle removed while she was away. When she found out what he did, she refused to talk to him for days and was very angry and upset. 2 weeks after the circle was removed, all of her pregnant cows aborted their calves. My Nana was devastated since she had a lot of experience with cows and was very careful with looking out for them and their well-being. And she'd never lost all of her calves like that before. She'd lost one or two, but never all of them. There was also a strange, scary experience that involved me that my Nana believed was also connected. My mom and 1-year-old me had stayed with my Nana for a few days to cheer her up since she was so upset about the calves. Somehow I ended up catching chicken pox, which is supposed to be rare in babies under 1 year old. Luckily, I wasn't too sick, but it still scared everyone. I know my Nana still leaves small offerings in the cattle field, like small cakes and barley water, even though my step-granddad still thinks it's silly. I've stayed at her farm a lot, and the field definitely has a different feel to it that I've never felt anywhere else, especially at night, and I would never stay outside after dark. I know it was probably just 2 random coincidences, but it's become legend in my family. I am realizing now that fairies are not this like pixie dust sprinkling, creatures that flit around like Tinkerbell. Like they can cause some serious destruction out there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they're not magical like your fairy godmother and everything. I don't know. I feel like that's like the anomaly, and that they're mostly like evil little bastards that are messing with things. Had you heard of the term fairy circle when it comes to mushrooms before?
No, I hadn't.
Because I grew up hearing that they were fairy circles when you see a little circle of mushrooms, but
oh, you already knew about it?
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure my dad told me, and he very Irish family, like it's an Irish, like my dad was 100% Irish, so I think I took it for granted, and I didn't know if everyone grew up with that terminology, and I never feared or knew I had to protect him or anything.
But also where we grew up, we're not in Texas and Oklahoma weren't really mushroom heavy states. True. So there weren't, I've never seen it before, but looking online, there are loads of pictures with the fairy circles. It's fascinating. So AJ starts off saying, when we were little, we went back to Ireland to see the family, and still do. Our great aunties were beautiful, interesting, and funny, but really old school, a cross between Orthodox, Catholic, and pagan. They warned us and their grandchildren to stay clear of the fairy circles. Oh, wait, they're Irish. Stay clear of the fairy circles that seemed to grow 10 to a dozen around there. Most of the time, we ignored the elders completely and explored the areas nearby the fairy circles, but never had the bottle to get too close. Fairy circles are dangerous. Fae are dangerous. Coming from a family that believes in the old ways, we were raised with a healthy respect for the realms. So AJ went and she posted this online, sort of the backstory of fairy circles.
Okay.
She said that they're a Celtic legend with roots also in England, Northern European, and Scandinavian culture. They're natural formations in ring or arc of mushrooms, plants or flowers growing around 10 meters. They are mainly found in forested areas, but have also been seen in grasslands and glens. Fairy circles are looked upon wearily by believers and locals as hazardous and harmful places. You don't visit them alone, after dark, or at certain times of the year. Fairy circles are made by the Fae people dancing or celebrating certain events in moonlit nights. It is said that if a fairy circle is sighted in the morning, it is proof of a dance the evening before. A story is told the mushrooms were picked by the quote-unquote little people to be used as parasols or umbrellas in the Celtic version of the lore. Locations of the fairy circles are known to be extremely fertile. The crops grow full and lush, and the animals that are raised around the area flourish and thrive. Ooh, that kind of goes hand in hand with them being destroyed and then the animals having issues. However, there's a Dutch legend about such fairy circles that says the center of the ring are always barren because the devil himself placed his milk churn there. An Austrian version states, long ago, fierce fire-breathing dragons caused the rings, only allowing toadstools to grow in the area for 7 years. In French lore, the story is told of giant evil toads guarding the strange circles, cursing anyone who would enter them. This is personally my favorite of all the folklore. Do not enter any fairy circle you see. The Fae people and creatures linked to the fairy circles are considered malevolent beings who only want to cause harm. There are many myths and legends about what will happen to a mortal who dares step in the center of a fairy circle, mostly dark. For example, if you enter a fairy circle, you will die young. You could also become invisible to the mortal world, also becoming trapped in a circle and unable to return to the mortal world. You would be transported immediately to the underworld or the world of the Fae. Mortals who find themselves there are forced to dance around the circle until they die of exhaustion or madness. To escape this fate, the person must run around the ring, no less or more than 9 times in an anti-clockwise direction on a full moon, or you could keep away from them completely. So actually, just this moment, do you recall when we did our haunted forest episode and you told a story about a girl who went in the forest and then came out?
Oh,
a day
like
or so later,
like 40 years later or something. I can't remember.
And it was like no time had passed.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was over in Europe somewhere. I want to say it was like Russia or something, wasn't it? And like, or Transylvania, some forest with like twisty trees and yes.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
But I wonder if it's, this kind of feels like, where did you go? Oh, the fairy realm.
So the fairy circles I've seen have been quite small, but I never was warned about them. I was just always like, oh, fairies, like that's cute.
Did you dance around inside this circle?
No.
Okay, good.
And
good.
No. But I never like kicked them or anything either. But I didn't stay away from them. It was just like, ooh. But they've been like that's small. Fun. They're not like, I mean, maybe I have it. 10 meters is quite large, isn't it? Like a meter is 3 feet, 9 feet or something. Isn't that something like that?
33 feet.
Oh, okay. That's huge. How do you even know then? Feet. Like you could be walking through and you don't know you're in a fairy circle.
It appears that they can be many sizes. On a skeptical note, I was talking to my brother Brian, who is an arborist, about fairies and fairy circles. And he said that fairy circles are a thing, but they're caused after a tree's been cut down and the roots are decomposing, causing mushroom circles to appear in an area.
Oh, interesting.
But that can't possibly be the case for all fairy circles, but maybe it is.
Yeah, I don't know, because I've seen them out in
rings of flowers. Yeah. But some fairy circles, especially with mushrooms in particular, can be caused by dead trees, the roots.
Did I tell you that Milo had the shits from eating a fucking mushroom in our backyard a couple weeks ago? Oh my god!
Yes,
it was not a fairy. Maybe it was a fairy circle. Maybe it was a fairy circle.
Shit.
Who knows?
Took a mushroom from a fairy circle.
A lobster mushroom. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't a circle, and maybe it was the fairies, and not the fact that he ate unwashed edible mushroom from our backyard. They're making it sound like that one fairy circle was out in the pasture for like years on end and endless, but that's just not how mushrooms work. Like they come and go.
But maybe fairy circle mushrooms are different.
I mean, I'm telling you, I've seen them. I remember. I know. I've seen them. They're in the backyard. Like I've had them in my backyard and they just come and go. They might move around or something because it's spores and whatnot. So
whether I believe it or not, I am not fucking around with the fairy circle.
I mean, now I will.
Like,
I never knew.
Tip my hat to it.
Yeah,
and
I thought
goodbye.
I thought it was like cute little Smurfs that lived in them or something as a kid, for sure. Okay, that's some interesting history, though. That is. I found a couple stories I want to tell you, but one I wanted to tell very quickly because it is kind of a callback to the Glimmerman episode.
Oh, Glimmerman!
And so.
Yes.
This one says that I was with friends in a campground where they had an RV parked. One day, my friend looks up and freezes and says she sees what she described as a typical garden gnome, as in a fairy creature standing there, and then was gone. A few weeks go by and I'm over there again, thinking nothing about it, and turn, and I don't exactly see the gnome, but it is like when you've looked at something and close your eyes and for a few seconds you see the negative of the object but can still clearly see it. It was like that. I was seeing it, but like the predator or something, camouflaged. I told her about it. I went home and was cleaning in the house and turned around, and that same negative image predator camo thing was in the corner of my dining room. Typical garden gnome with the tall hat. And I've never seen it since.
What?
But that was like how everyone was describing the Glimmerman. Like this, there's this like, this makes me think it's like a dimensional thing, right? Like somehow they're bleeding through dimensions and you can't see it super clearly. So maybe it's the Glimmerman. Maybe the Glimmerman is a giant fairy gnome.
That's another thing I always thought was like... The gnomes with the pointy hats. That's just like an old illustration. That's not a real thing, is it? I guess it could be.
It totally is. It totally is. And now I'm having trouble deciding which one I'm going to tell you. Let's stick to...
Tell me all of them. Okay. I want to hear them all.
Let's, for a moment, stick to your fairy rings and walking inside the fairy ring and... being trapped in a fairyland. So this story is from Siobhan. I saw a fairy portal once and almost went through it. I was 9 years old and it was the week before school. I was depressed about classes starting because kids had started to bully me. My mom took me on a day trip to the local preserve. When we arrived, there was a busload of elementary kids and my heart sank. I was noticeably chubby and kids were always cruel about it. This was the 1980s and fat phobia was intense. So we walk along the main path full of kids. My mom could instantly charm children, so they loved her. But when she wasn't looking, the kids would say mean shit to me. So I wandered off the main trail and I found an Indian trail. It was very distinct in spite of a lot of undergrowth. Passed between two trees that arched towards one another, almost like a doorway. And then I came into this huge hedge. It was too high to see over and it stretched all the way from the Indian trail to the main path, seeming to cut across the forest. The Indian trail, I think she means Native American trail. Excuse my language, please. I'm just
I wasn't sure what that was.
I think just like I actually don't know what it means.
Path.
Maybe it's a deer trail. I'm not really sure. So it led right up to it and there was a fissure just wide enough for a child to fit through. I peeked inside and it was so lusciously green and cool. This was a stifling hot day, Nebraska heat, humid and oppressive. So it was unusual to find some place that cool in the forest, given all the heat and humidity. I squeezed into the fissure, set my foot in the earth on the other side, which was soft and moist and springy, unlike the hard-baked sandy earth of the main forest. What I saw remains the most beautiful place I had ever seen. The sky was pearl blue. There was a vivid green bank sloping down to dry creek overgrown with ferns. A huge fallen tree trunk spanned the ancient creek like a bridge. On the other side was a forest of silvery trees, the most inviting thing I could ever have seen. Peaceful, wondrous. All the sounds from outside were hushed, no gabbing children, etc. It filled me with joy, and at that time of my life, I had precious little that made me happy. Now, I had braced my hand on the outer wall of the hedge, had my other foot firmly planted in the hard, sandy, quote-unquote, real part of the path, because somehow I knew if I put both feet in the fairy side, I would never go back. It was so hard not to walk into it and start exploring. I truly felt the place call to me, and I have never wanted anything so bad than to cross that tree bridge and explore that silvery forest. Even the air felt different, moist and sweet. I felt a light, gentle mist touch my face as I closed my eyes and breathed in deep. But then I thought of my mother. Could I really just leave her behind? She had a sad life too, and I thought it would be a gift to show her this place, and we could go in together. Well, as I had that thought, the fissure in the hedge began to close, pressing against my stomach and back. I was forced to choose, go forward or back. I pulled myself back out of it with an effort. The hedge branches caught in my t-shirt and tore a hole. Also, a branch scraped my arm, drawing blood. I went back down the Indian trail, past the two trees entwined like a doorway, and found my mother on the main path still talking to those brats that had the nerve to bully me when she wasn't looking. I insisted she come with me to see this most glorious thing. She didn't doubt me, was willing to follow me. Only now it was really difficult to find the Indian trail in the overgrowth. It was all overgrown and covered in leaves, but I spotted it and made it as far as the two trees that were like a door. Only they were strung with nasty cobwebs, like the trees were suddenly so old and ugly I couldn't imagine going near them. And the trail had disappeared entirely. I looked up and pointed in the direction of the hedge, sure she could spot it from there. It was 9 feet high and stretched in for several yards in both directions. But no, there was nothing, only the usual tree and undergrowth. My shock when it wasn't there. I saw then it was impossible that it had ever been there. It would have bisected the main path, which was packed with children and teachers. I was speechless, trying to get my mother to understand what I saw. She didn't doubt me and said, maybe it was just for you to see. I felt such a profound feeling of loss, really inconsolable loss. Probably at the end of my days, I will still think of that place. That was my chance to enter the fairy realm, but I turned back.
Oh my God! That's incredible! I've never heard anything like that before.
I've not. So is that like what happens if you go into the center of a fairy ring, apparently? Or like the people disappearing in the woods? Like, is that a common... I didn't look into actually the like
The vibe I get is that you're given the ability to see the path, to open it up. Like that's sort of like their, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily want to say their gift to you, but it's like they allowed her to go down that path. They allowed her to go.
It's inviting her in.
I mean, what would you call that? A portal. Yeah, it was an invitation. Like clearly it was a special moment and she like had to choose. But the fact that she was young too, I think plays a big part, because from what I have read, some fairies tend to be drawn to the youth.
Ooh. So that what do they do to them? Eat them? Yum, yum, yum.
They're the ones they like to take. I don't know.
They steal them. So is that part of like the lore? Because I didn't like the Irish lore of it, that children would disappear in forests and the fairies would be blamed because you said like heard about the center. I don't know.
I mean, I guess when talking about it, that yeah, if you go into the center, then you have, you could get sucked into the other world, or the fairy realm or whatever. Trapped there. Yeah. This didn't seem like an entrapment. This seemed more like a lure, like, oh, follow this beautiful pathway.
But if she went in there, she was never going to be able to return. It was a choice. It's almost like a near-death experience, though, too. It's like you've got to choose. Do you stay or do you go?
You know what it kind of reminded me of was the movie My Neighbor Totoro. Did you ever watch that movie?
No, I've not
Stop
seen
right
that,
now.
But I know the one you're talking.
And go watch that movie. It is one of my absolute favorites. But there's this one scene where the BRB, the little, I want to say that she might be 3 or 5, but she finds in the woods a tunnel, and on the other side is Totoro, the sleeping bear cat thing.
I've seen the commercials. I like Ponyo. A lot of those movies bore me to death, the princess movies, but there's one that's called Ponyo, and then Neighbor Totoro looks good, but Spirited Away, snooze fest. All of those princess movies, Mitch loves them.
You are going to get some
these are the most
haters.
boring movies I've ever seen.
I will say, My Neighbor Totoro, it feels more on the entertainment line of Ponyo than Spirited Away.
Let's shit on some others. Hold on. Princess. What are the other ones?
Mononoke?
Yes.
Shut up! I love Princess.
So
okay,
boring.
Get out of town. Get out of town. Kiki's Witch Service. What do you think about that one? Did you see that one?
I kind of gave up after a few. Yeah. I was like, snooze fast.
You're going to get some hate mail, Alissa. Get ready. Good story.
So yeah, that's the spirit realm. I've got that or the fairy realm doesn't exactly include any fairies per se, but it sounds like the realm that
she would have encountered something on that other side. And she was being lured in.
It sounds glorious, but it also sounds like where we live.
Lured. Yes, it does.
It sounds like the Pacific Northwest. Lured. It's like she found a portal to the PNW. You're just going to pop out in our yard, start banging on my windows. All the other wildlife.
I'll find her on my forest walk.
Yes. Do you have another story?
I do. Sort of. I reached out to another fairy friend online. This is information that I got from Kat. They say that there are actually countless different kinds of fae and fae tribes. She says that there are 2 main separations. There are light and dark fae. Depending on what section they are, their personality varies. Light fae are rather kind and usually quite friendly. Although obviously they can cause just as much damage as dark fae, they are less likely to attack anyone. Dark fae usually avoid other species and they are quite hostile towards humans. The only race they do love a lot are the light fae. You could imagine them as protectors of the lighter fae. The other section there is humanoid or non-humanoid fae. And now this fascinated me. Some fae look like humans and are the same size. They could peacefully stand next to you, and most likely you wouldn't even recognize them as fae. They're kind of living for a goal. There's a lot of different tribes. Celestial fae, for example, live to record history. The non-humanoid fae are more linked to nature. They don't usually follow any goal, and you could say that they just kind of vibe. Those are the ones that the mythology knows the most of, as they can actually cause quite a fuzz when it comes to their territory.
This is giving some credence to the possibility that Glimmerman is actually a fairy.
Oh.
Because I didn't think they could be life-size. I didn't know that.
Human size, yeah.
And then
could be.
Gnomes, elves, fairies, trolls, are they all of the same? Like, are we talking about the same creatures when we're talking about these fellows?
Again, not an expert. I would say no.
A fairologist?
I think that fairies and gnomes and trolls, I think that they're separate creatures. That, I mean, they can have the same, like, perhaps, like, magical power? I am not the expert in this. I don't know. But if you have a gnome or troll story, bring it, girl.
I do have a gnome story. So the one that you were talking about earlier, the red cap, the gnome, you're like, those don't really exist.
Yeah.
That's not really a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, no, my friend. They do exist. And they're actually called red caps is the formal name for them. So those little adorable garden gnomes you see have a not so adorable history to them. Okay. So this is from Monster.
I am so ready for this.
So this is from monster.fandom.com. Red caps, also known as red combs or bloody caps, are a type of evil, bloodthirsty goblin or gnome whose origins lie in the folklore of southern Scotland and northern England. Diminutive, stocky humanoids possessed of incredible strength and durability. Red caps have sharp teeth, claws, long, lank hair, and glowing red eyes. They carry a tall pike staff with them wherever they go and sport a pair of heavy iron boots. Red caps take their name from the crimson bonnets they like to wear. Believed to inhabit the many abandoned castles which dot the borders area lying between Scotland and England, and in particular the ones which have been the site of atrocities, redcaps lie in wait for unwary travelers to seek refuge in their lairs. When one happens along, the resident redcap will then proceed to throw enormous boulders at his prey. If he succeeds in killing the poor unfortunate, he will then soak his cap in the blood of his victim, this act apparently sustaining the long life of the redcap.
God.
That's how they get their red caps. It's from blood. Okay. The only ways to ward off one of these supernatural predators is to either quote from religious scripture or to confront the red cap with the image of a holy cross. Doing so will cause the creature to let out a mournful howl before vanishing in a puff of smoke and flame. The only evidence of his presence will be a single large tooth left at the site of his disappearance. So the origins are, although commonly believed to be fae folk, one school of thought holds that redcaps are in fact the vengeful spirits of men and women who were sacrificed by the Pictish builders of the borders castles which they inhabit. The theory states that the Picts would use the blood of these sacrifices to bless the foundations of their fortresses and use the souls to remain there in torment for all eternity.
Oh, man, I am highly questioning the gnomes statues that I have in my backyard at the moment.
You will not look at them.
Thought that they were these adorable little gentlemen.
So, okay. So
evil.
Very evil. There's like a very scary picture. So that was from monster.fandom.com. So there have been sightings of these gnomes in America though. And people are like, why are they here? And then someone, they remind them, oh, this is a British colony, right? So at some point, they probably hitched a ride over on a boat or whatever. And yes. I don't know if I have time to get into this, but I will try. So there's a story that I've seen a few times, and there's another podcast called From the Shadows, which we've actually talked to them a few times. And they talked about this on one of their podcasts, and on their blog, someone wrote in a story of an experience that they had with a red cap. So this story is actually from weirdfresno.com, but it came from the Shadows podcast blogspot, I think, originally. It says, one night, Tammy and her son were coming back from the grocery shopping when, as she parked the car and got out, she noticed a movement to her right. Thinking nothing of it, she picked up a grocery bag and noticed it again, this time accompanied by what she described as a very freaky, very evil-sounding chuckle. Looking in the direction of the noise, Tammy noticed about 50 yards from her a small, humanoid-looking figure, or, as she described it, a gnome. The figure was about 2 to 3 feet in height, wore black baggy pants and a gold-colored shirt. The face was partially covered by a long salt and pepper beard, and on top of the head was a long, red, pointed hat. The nose was large and bulbous, and the eyes were rather deep-set. As the figure grinned at them, Tammy noticed that the grin was almost from ear to ear, and the teeth looked to be an ugly brown color and appeared to be either pointed or jagged. Horrified, Tammy dropped the groceries and grabbed her son and ran off towards the house with the cackling little man right on her heels. Tammy was able to get inside the house and was in the midst of telling her 2 daughters what she saw when she saw movement outside the kitchen window. Upon investigating, she saw the top of the figure's red-pointed hat moving back and forth underneath the window. Finally, after what must have seemed like an eternity, the figure disappeared, and Tammy was able to get the groceries from the car. This was the only time she actually saw the figure, but until she moved out, she would always hear creepy chuckling coming from the old barn, as if it was taunting her or something. You would think that this would be an isolated occurrence, but it seems the gnome wasn't satisfied with just terrorizing Tammy and her family. In March of 2010, a family moved into the same house on the Tool River. This is in California, by the way. Tool River, California. According to the wife, Charlie, it was perfect for what their family needed. Her husband took a particular liking to a pond on the property and decorated it with fairy, gnome, and toadstool yard ornaments and stocked it with Japanese koi fish. Not surprisingly, Charlie and her family also had an eerie feeling about the old barn on the property and tried to stay away from it as much as possible. One night at around 3 a.m., Charlie and her husband were woken by what can only be described as a raspy, gurgling singing. Charlie and her husband looked out their bedroom window, and what they saw defied what they considered their reality. Standing by the pond and holding one of the garden gnomes was a creature that came out of Grimm's fairy tale, as Charlie described it. The creature was 2 to 3 feet tall, wearing maroon pants and a baggy yellow shirt with a brown vest over it and a dark waistcoat. It had a large gray beard and was wearing a reddish-brown pointed hat. Charlie went on to say the most horrible part of the creature were its eyes and teeth. When it grinned, its teeth appeared to be jagged and pointed, and the eyes were small and beady and had a dark, mean look to them. Apparently, the creature saw the couple looking at him, or it, and reached into the pond and grabbed a koi and dropped it into its mouth and swallowed it. Furious, Charlie's husband pushed open the window and yelled at the creature to leave the yard or he'd call the police. The gnome grinned and laughed as he gave them the finger and disappeared. The police were called, being notified that an intruder was on the property. But when they got there, an hour later, the only evidence that was found was small footprints about the size of a child's around the pond. This wasn't the only time the gnome would visit the pond. Night after night, it was seen holding a yard ornament and eating a fish. The family eventually wised up and moved the ornaments and put the fish into a tank inside the house. Apparently, this didn't go over well with the gnome. Upon the usual time of its appearance at 3 a.m., when the gnome saw the yard ornaments and fish had been removed, it went into a crazed frenzy and began yelling and screaming in some language that nobody could understand. But they understand it was pissed. It began to run around the house screaming in whatever language was native to it. The family felt safe until Charlie realized the dog door in the kitchen was unlocked and feared the creature would try to enter the house through that. She was able to lock it and then ran upstairs to close the rest of the windows. The last they heard of the creature was a very loud screeching, cackling sound that was heard underneath one of the living room windows. Charlie's husband went to investigate and saw the top of the creature's hat underneath the window. Given all that the family had gone through, the family decided to get out of the house and Porterville in general. So apparently the women got in touch with each other, and then they went out to investigate the site, and they did realize they had lived at the same property. Okay, this was the same exact property. So they went out together and knocked on the door because someone else had lived there, and an old lady answered the door, and they asked about the old barn. She's like, "Get off my property." And she like seemed very upset when they asked about the barn. And so they don't have any answers as far as that goes. But. So on this blog post that I just read to you, Tammy actually wrote a comment, and she says, "I am Tammy Thomas from the Creepy Gnome story in Porterville. The thing that we saw was horrible. It could be what the person who owns this blog said it was. A red hat. I called it a gnome, as that is what it resembled to me. I did move, but only about a half-mile down the road, and still with the Tool River running behind us. I did not know when I moved here that some of my neighbors had had experiences with a creepy gnome way before I told my story. They were run out of the river by this thing twice at 2 different locations. Well, for the past several months, we have started having the same experiences we did at the other place. We have heard the creepy cackling laugh and heard something running around the house. One night, as I was lying on the couch, I heard something running very fast across my deck. It hit the gate so hard that it flew end over end. The thing running was too heavy to be a cat, but too fast to be a human. Another night, I was lying on the couch and noticed something moving out of the corner of my eye on the deck. The mini blinds were down, but not shut, and I saw the creepy gnome or red hat standing next to the shelf on my desk where I keep my yard ornaments, fairies, and things like that, which have gone missing. I closed the slats on the mini blind with my hand, but the curtain was pulled away from the slider, and I did not see it, but I knew that it was looking at me through the open curtain. I tried to lie really still, and when my grandson came in, I told him what happened, and he pulled the curtain closed. He looked around outside, but only found some small footprints on a white shelf that is in our storage area. So this thing is still here and terrorizing me and my neighbors."
Oh my gosh, Tammy, can't escape it.
The red cap. Who knew?
Oh my God. Oh my God. I had no idea. The evil grin, nightmarish.
There's a
like,
very creepy
it's
picture.
already jolting to be like, oh, this is unhumanly. And then to have it, just that sharp teeth grin. Ooh.
But then it's obsessed with the lawn ornaments that are like it. Like, does it think maybe the humans turned its friends into little statues and that's why it's like so pissed off? Or what is the deal?
Or my thoughts were that it, not speaking the same language, maybe it was like, oh, the humans put the fish in the pond for me. And I know this because they have the gnome next to the pond. It's the gnome pond. It's for me. And then for them to take away the gnomes and the fish, he's like, what the fuck? My gift, my fish pond. And, little man is angry. Oh my gosh. That's fascinating. But all of this happened within the last 10 years though, right?
I think the first blog post from the shadows, I want to say it was in like 2010 or maybe it was 10 years ago. I can't remember, but yeah, 10
this
to 15
is one
years.
of those where you've got the cell phone in your pocket. Like if you see the red cap running back and forth from your window, like how has nobody
That's what some
documented
people said
this?
too. You could set up like a security camera, but maybe it is like the predator thing and they know how to camouflage and they only are seen, allow themselves to be seen when they want to. I mean, they're fucking magic.
Yes, it's true. It makes me wonder, we read all of these paranormal ghostly experiences. Like, how much is an actual ghost and how much is just a fairy or gnome fucking with us, you know?
Right? Exactly. Like, I mean, people really do say, oh, it's the fairies. Apparently that's a thing. They do like steal things and will move things on you. And a lot of people, that's and they blame it on the fairies. But maybe, do we know where all these little fairy gnome statues come from? Is someone trapping gnomes and turning them into statues?
Mine are too cute. What they're describing is really disturbing sounding. A blood-soaked red hat, sunken in beady eyes, and sharp teeth grinning at you. I don't want that gnome. I don't want that one. Nope. Pass.
No, I don't. But maybe he's pissed because Big Gnome is capturing all his friends and turning them into gnome statues for profit.
I mean, I think there's a movie based on that, isn't there?
It's Big Gnome. The Great Gnome Conspiracy.
Damn, Alissa, bringing it. Opening up just the wealth of knowledge that I had no idea about.
I had no idea. Red caps, and I just love that their caps are red because they dip them in the blood of their victims, and that also contributes to their longevity. God. That's why they're around for so long. Hey, Britt, do you have another story? A little people story? A little story about little people?
In fact, I do. Okay, so as I was mentioning before, I was talking online with AJ. I found AJ on Reddit. Their handle is blackcat1206. And I'm saying that because they are a wealth of information.
Okay.
But this story comes from her. I come from a family of sensitives who've practiced earth and nature magic for generations. We are a mixed bag, born and bred Londoners, half Irish and half Spanish. I am not even going to try with that accent, Alissa.
No,
just
don't do
so
it.
You know. There's also some French and Scandinavian sprinkled in there. I've had paranormal and supernatural experiences all my life, as have the rest of my family. Because of our belief system, we interact with nature, spirits, and deities daily, and the existence of the Fae is accepted and almost taken for granted. When I was a very young child, my gran believed that my imaginary best friend, Bat Bear, was, in fact, a puka. Pukas are fae creatures from Celtic mythology. We were all knowledgeable about all the Celtic mythology and lore, living with several elders, who not only told us stories of the fae world, but Spanish and Scandinavian folklore too. At the time, I didn't really comprehend or care who Bat Bear was, but as I got older and learned more about my culture and belief system, Bat Bear did resemble the common imagery of a puka. He was a small bear-type creature the size of a 6-year-old with long bat ears, dressed in a red jumper and blue dungarees with gold buttons. He was with me from the age of 3 until I was 9, and he was what my gran thought to be a puka. It's a fae creature that is a shapeshifter, but it appears as a horse, goat, dog, cat, raven, rabbit, and, most commonly, a hare. It was believed that in the rural areas of old Ireland, they could bring ill or good fortune to the farms and hamlets that they haunted. Bat Bear never told me to do bad things, never did anything creepy or crazy. If anything, he made me want to behave. When I got cross, naughty, or sad, he calmed me and always led me to amend my behavior. Bat Bear wasn't good, nor was he bad. He just existed. He used to curl up at the end of my bed to sleep, sit beside me on the floor as I played, and sat beside me when I was in my wheelchair and we read together. He was around for 6 years and then was gone as suddenly as he arrived. My gran used to say that pukas were wild and Bat Bear was wild. Looking back at him now, I personally think he really was a puka, and I believe that gran saw him too. I still like to think that he was there when I needed him. So I was really curious about what a puka was, and I researched it a little bit. And they are indeed shapeshifters that can take any form that they wish. They love being horses because of the freedom to run. I found on a website called yourirish.com that says when a puka is in horse form, he tends to have fun by inviting a rider to jump on his back. This usually happens when the rider has had a little too much to drink and is making his weary way home from the pub. Thus starts the wildest trip the rider will ever known, for the puka loves to terrify its riders with great prowess, jumping over hedges and rocks and making death-defying leaps. Come the gray dawn, the rider is thrown off of the horse's back and left trembling, but none the worse from the night's events, to find their way home. This is maybe where their reputation slips a bit, as while on a wild night out like this, they do tend to run through crop fields and knock down fences without care. Sometimes pukas will stop you for a long conversation, shaped in the form of a human, and they typically will talk about how they used to live at the place and how their family has lost its fortune or how they have lost their land, and they'll talk your ear off for an hour, only then to just completely vanish. And they say that this is fucking annoying. Apparently, just past November 1st, the day after Halloween, is considered Puka Day. Fun facts about pukas. There's a small mountainous lake called a puka pool, or sometimes demon hole. If you see rain falling on a sunny day, a puka will appear that night. You are never to eat berries that have been killed in the frost the night before, because apparently they are covered in puka spit. And modern day pukas are in such movies as Harvey, the 6-foot rabbit, and Donnie Darko, the rabbit hair being with the long ears.
That's a puka.
Totally a puka.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Yeah. So shape-shifting fairy, the puka. I found that highly interesting.
I Googled puka while you were talking about it, and there's a wide range of illustrations. Some of them are just stinking adorable, and then some are definitely on the terrifying end, a la Donnie Darko. See, I thought Donnie Darko was based on a Virginia legend of the Bunny Man.
We did talk about the Bunny Man a little bit, I think, right?
Yeah, but maybe he was actually a puka. No one really knows.
I mean, yeah, maybe the Bunny Man is puka.
Maybe the Easter Bunny is puka.
Shit, why not?
Damn, I don't know. Who knows?
Pretty creepy.
Oh, I like that story. But that one sounds like a cute little, fun little puka.
Little bat bear. I know,
bear.
A little friendly little puka to hang out.
Adorable. Oh my gosh. Well, man, great stories, Britt.
You too. I love it. I did not get to talk about one type of fairy that I might just bring it next episode. I don't know if we're going with the theme next episode, but regardless, I might just share it because I'm itching to
just
tell
do
everybody.
A callback. I know what you're talking about, and I want to hear your tales about that as well. So you'll just have to tune in next week to know what we're teasing at here, dear listeners.
That's right. If you have a fairy story to share, or a gnome story to terrify us with, or a fun little puka imaginary friend that you want to share, you can write us in at our hotbox
at SkeleTalesPodcast@gmail.com. You can also call our hotline.
Share your grandma curses at 302-689-DEAD, 302-689-3323. We are on all of the social medias. I just had a brain fart. We are on all the social medias. SkeleTales Podcast. You can message us over there. We also have a merch shop that has some creepy marionettes, a mysterious hand-carved owl. That's at skeletalespodcast.etsy.com. What else, Alissa?
I think you said we're on all the socials. Come join us. Hey, share, like, review us, do all those things. Definitely. It really helps us. If you have anyone that you think would be a good person to have on the podcast. We haven't done a SkeleTalk in a while. And so if you think you know someone interesting, put us in touch and we'll bring them on.
Yeah.
We could do a little SkeleTalk with them. Anything else, Britt?
Oh, yeah, there was one more fascinating fact I wanted to tell with you.
Okay, what is it?
Haunt y'all later.
Haunt you later.
Good night.
Good night.